I teach an online course now for elementary kids. I call it the Black History Book Club. It's a great time with those kids. This one kid in particular, he might be 7 years old. This is one of the brightest young men I've had the pleasure of teaching. He comes prepared every day, or every Monday. He's ready to read. When he was started the class at 6 years old, he was reading to me at like a middle school level. And his mom was always on the side. I could tell even anytime he mispronounced something, she was there to kind of help him out and everything. Just a very ambitious child. This past Monday, because I felt compelled to tell this to the kids because I have a close friend of mine who's Indian, who's in the class. He's a teacher as well. And his son was dealing with some issues at 10 years old, being bullied and, taunted with ice and stuff like that. So I told the kids, I kept reiterating because we do affirmations every class and I keep telling them why. And I talk about how Muhammad Ali, how he affirmed what he was going to be. And I talk about Malcolm X and what he dealt with and just the importance of it, especially like studies say Black children, Latino children, when they affirm themselves about their future positively, they're more likely to go to college, right? We have to have that buffer. This young man, he sends me a private message later in class and says that he names the boy, because he's young, he thinks I know his friend. He says, this kid so-and-so, I'm in karate class, told me, am I ready to be his slave? And I said, what? And he sent it privately, so I didn't know if he wanted me to say his name. So I just told the class, like, somebody just shared this with me. This class ranges from 5 to 10 years old. And he eventually spoke up and said that it was him. And he wanted people to know. Everybody in the class, because he's one of the youngest ones, just started just pouring in support. And now, mind you, when I asked them what they had been doing the last 2 weeks, I didn't see him last week. He said, I'm working on a movie script. I was like, what? You're 7. And he said, an animated movie. I said, this. So, and he shares what happened and everybody just pouring into him, just building him up and affirming him. And afterwards, I emailed his mom and I said, do you mind if I share this publicly? Of course, not saying his name and everything. And she said she was fine. And I asked how he was doing. She's like, he's pretty resilient. He was curious why somebody would want to do that, but it didn't damage him, And I can't prove this, but I'm just saying, I think a portion of that it's the parenting, right? For a parent to say, I'm gonna sign my kid up for a class on a Monday evening, in addition to what they already do at school, I'm gonna sit there with them the whole time. You're already doing something at home. And then for me, I'm probably the only Black male teacher he has. Every week, we're talking about person of the week. We're talking about, I spend the whole first semester, it's all African history. We don't even touch on slavery. We just got to slavery in February. So by the time we get to this, they know it's not normal. For the first 7 years of his life, he's been built. And to the point of karate, how I'm looking at it now is, when you take karate, and I took it, a little bit, I didn't really get far, but they tell you we're teaching you this so you don't use it, but you could kill somebody with it.
That's kind of like Black history. I'm teaching you this so but don't kill nobody with it.
Don't kill, because straight up.
It is Freedom Friday and you are still not free. Welcome back to Freedom Friday. It's Friday and you are still not free, but hopefully you'll be freer after this hour with the homies. Today's guest is someone that I've admired for a while. He's an anti-racist educator, an Emmy-nominated producer, and a man who turned a moment of hate into an empowerment mission. I'm talking about Ernest Crim, the third author of the new book, Black History's Power to Combat Racism. He's also a former high school teacher, a viral content creator, and I mean viral, with a monthly reach of over 4 million people. He's also the founder of Crim's Cultural Consulting. Ernest believes Black history doesn't just teach us the past. It gives us tools to transform the future. So today he's going to share on the show a little bit about that sentiment, why Black history can save us, and what got him to write this book that we're going to talk about today. Ernest, thank you so much for coming on today. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here with y'all. So it's family, y'all.
It is, and you're like one of the the family members with money. Like, when you come over for dinner, you're like, oh yeah, he's doing something real good there. Let me just start us off with a few facts, because we talk about Black heritage, Black history, the Black past, all that stuff in ways that sometimes sounds is like it's a nice to have, but it's not essential. So here are just 5 things I want to bring out. Learning from Black heritage helps Black children feel proud, seen, and valued, especially in spaces where they have historically been erased or marginalized. marginalized. That's what research says. That's not what I'm saying. Knowing the strength and achievements of their ancestors give Black students the courage to face modern day challenges. That's what research says. That's not what I'm saying. Black history is a central part of American history, and students deserve a full, honest education that reflects the truth. Again, research says that. Teaching Black history to all students normalizes diversity, fosters empathy, pushes back against classroom racism. And that's what research says, but I don't know that I believe that one. To be very honest with you at that point, I don't know if it normalizes diversity and fosters empathy, but maybe y'all can do me wrong. And then the last point is it also sharpens critical thinking by helping students understand systems of oppression and equipping them to advocate for equity and social change. Again, this is what research says. So just wanted to ground us in that and jump right in with all of y'all. But Ernest, I want to start with you. Why did you feel like this book that you wrote needed to be written now?
Yeah, first off, I'll just say that when I was in college and I almost flunked out. And that's when I decided to take a Black History course. It occurred to me at that point, at the end of my first semester, freshman year at this PWI, that I had never taken a Black History course, like a standalone. And when I went to this majority, by far majority Black high school in Chicago on the South Side, I only had the opportunity to take it as an elective, and I didn't really have the time and space for it. So it was one of those things where I said, well, I was surrounded by it my whole life. So I was really implicitly being taught Black history by my parents, my grandparents, but I didn't realize it. So I wanted to just sit down and be able to digest it. So I went out on a whim and took the course, and I absolutely fell in love. And for the first time in my life, I began to go to class early. I started to sit in the front. I met with the professors. I liked reading for the first time. My grandmother used to force us to read. Like, we would go over her house. She's from Mississippi. She don't play. Before we could touch her TV, we had to read Jet magazine front to back. We had to read something. I hated it. I was just reflecting the other day. I still got this book with me. When I was 8 going on 9, she gave me a Black history book about inventors on Valentine's Day. That's how real she was. She didn't give me no candy, no card. It was a book. So it paid off though. Some 15 some odd years later, I fall in love with this. And from that moment, I wanted to write something, but I just didn't know what it could be. I was like, I want to share this passion I have. And I'm only, 18, 19 at the time. I will say that I talked to myself out of it a lot. Even though I started teaching Black history, I didn't think I had anything to contribute. And I think that's oftentimes what we are made to believe, in this system. Of course, I think we're made to devalue our contributions and devalue who we are as people and our skill set and our strengths. But when I dealt with this hate crime in 2016, I felt compelled. It was almost as if I felt like I was holding back. And I realized that I had so much more to give. Like, every excuse I made for not public speaking, or every excuse I made for not posting public content, went out the way, because now I got to fight for justice. And it can never be something that's just for me. It's got to be for other people. So I started writing it because I wanted to make people aware of all of these lessons I learned in spite of the racism I faced that gave me pride, because there was never a point in my life when I dealt with racism that I fully believed the lie. It's not to say that the incidents did not hurt initially, but I was always saying, well, that can't be true because my mama said this, my daddy said this, my grandparents said this, Harriet Tubman said this. Like, we had these pictures and portraits and this art everywhere. So I know you lying. My church said otherwise, the Black church, right? So it was something I wanted to give to people to say that, this is what we commonly go through as Black people. That's not often discussed, especially as an 80s baby. I think we often forget about what happened in the 80s and the 90s. We often skip from Dr. King to Obama, or sometimes we'll talk about the Panthers, depending on where you at, but then we skip a lot. But I wanted to show people this is what we deal with, but this is how you counter it. And it just so happens that I decided to write that book in the midst of everything else that was going on. So as I'm writing the book, Trump took office, right? So a lot of stuff that people will hear, because I wrote this book primarily between 2017 and 2018. It sounds familiar. What I had to deal with when my kids came to school the next day after Trump's election, primarily with Hispanic students and things like that, is to let people know that we've been here before and we possess everything we know we need to fight to move forward progressively and push forward. It's truly a reminder. I can never say that I'm giving people something new and unique. I'm giving you something new from my perspective as somebody who was born in the 80s. I'm here just to remind you of our greatness so we can continue to push forward.
So I want to say this event that you had for people. You were at some form of public festival or outside, and you encountered a woman who went crazy and went nuts. And I don't know all the story. I just know what the video clip that went viral was of her spitting at you, spitting on you, and using the hard R over and over and over and over and over again. And in that moment, that you're in something like that as a normal Black American male, there's ways that you could respond to that that actually do you more damage, but they would be natural. Like the natural thing for you to respond so would have been to offer her some of your hand. Like just say, let me. I would love to offer you some of my hand, um, and you didn't do it. But Black men, especially in education, have this moment. This moment, there's a moment that changes things for you afterwards. I guess in your moment, and Sharif, you have a moment, and Ish, you've had more than one moment. I think we've all been through something. I would love to ask all of y'all just to talk about your moment, the Black male moment that you have, where this is a change. This is going to lead me one direction or another.
Mm. Yeah, in my situation, which led to me to write, how Black history could save your life, it was I preface this by saying that I think one way or another, I was taught, and maybe you all can relate, that the more education you get, maybe the higher income job you get, you in some ways can escape this. Not to say that the system doesn't exist, but you can evade it. You can, I grew up, I was still taught respectability politics, and I had to grapple with that a lot. Being taught if you look a certain, dress a certain way, hair a certain way, pants a certain way, put your pants up, don't wear braids, don't get the tats for the job interview, all that. You assume that it's not going to happen. We were at a majority Black event too. That's how audacious this woman was. A majority Black event on the south side of Chicago. She was there with two other Black people and a white person. Because we grabbed the beanbag that we thought she was done using, she completely went off. She starts cursing at us immediately, yelling at us about the beanbag. And I don't tolerate disrespect, so I didn't give it back. And here's the thing, here's how whiteness works. She had about 15 other bags. She didn't even need the bag. Now think about that metaphorically. You didn't even need nothing else, but you just wanted to impose your will because you say so. Because I deserve to have any and everything I want. How dare you tell me that I can't have this? How dare you tell me I can't say this word? So she starts calling us the word, and we're cursing back and forth, and she's calling over the cops at the same time. And this is, again, July 2016. Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Sandra Bland, all of this is fresh on my mind. I've been protesting most of that year, in fact. So I'm thinking she's trying to bait me. Like, if I respond how I want to, even with just a word, this could end really bad. How I was raised, how I was taught to defend myself, but I'm grown now. I haven't had a fight as a grown man. I don't even want to know what comes as a result of that. Like this ain't you get suspended from school. This is once you lose it, it might not be any coming back mentally or just literally physically in this realm. So I take out my phone because I'm thinking that's my only form of defense. And it escalates from there. And she's just coming up with excuses why she should be able to call us that word. And it was just like the most bizarre thing ever. I was really reflecting on it today too, this morning before we got on this call. And just the audacity. Like she truly believed like that was her right with her Black friends there. Who taught you, like Malcolm X, who taught you to hate yourself? Truthfully. So it escalated and then she decided to spit on us. Like that was, I could have never imagined that would have been the end result of that. And, something completely went off in that moment. And I think it's still, I don't want to say that's the thing that fuels me because I don't want to give her that credit, but it's the reminder that, 50 years ago, I definitely couldn't have, like, I would have just had to keep walking. Like 100 years ago, don't even look her in the eye. Don't even respond back to her. So for me, how I was raised, like how they say, as far as me and my house, like it's up. For as long as I live, people going to remember who you are, and they're going to remember our ancestors even more because of that moment.
Refinish. What about your moments?
I just want to say when I first saw that video, I thought it was like one of those dramatizations. You know what I mean? Like, you know how how somebody's like relive, and I'm like, no, that's actually like actually was happening in the moment. Like that is the person, not an actor. You know, relive it. You know what I mean? I was just like, yeah, and I agree. It reminded me of I often ask and talk about when you see those pictures of lynchings and you see little children and grandchildren there, uh, often looking like proud and gleeful. Like they have offspring. Sometimes people think all this stuff is frozen and mindsets are frozen. That things are passed along just like we're passed along. And I would say, one of I've had so many, Chris. My mind's been racing ever since you brought that question up. But I think one of the pivotal moments for me was as a kid. A lot of people, this is the 40th anniversary of the Move bombing. Um, uh, and matter of fact, today, no, it's in May, but this is the 40th anniversary this year. And but what people sometimes forget is like what happened in '78. And '78 was a confrontation that I remember distinctly. And I was in a all black school. We were, attending the Musasa. We had some just amazing teachers. Like they were pouring into us in such a just a resolute way. And the connection between home and school was so tight. And so, it was really a gift to attend that school. But I remember sitting in our kitchen. We'd watch the news, and this was, watching Delbert Africa being dragged down the street, by his locks, being kicked in the face, them bulldozing the house. Before that, them flooding the basement, shooting at the house, the number of rounds. And this is all like, on Channel 6, ABC News, the local news, and just showing this just brutality. And, we often talk about the bridge, that Dr. King and other John Lewis and others, on that bloody Sunday. It just even as a 7-year-old, it was just the bloody day. Every day of the week had some commemoration for blood, where bloody could be, start off the day. And I don't remember what day it was, but I remember watching that. And the picture that like just has continued to just be in my frontal lobe was Delbert Africa, no shirt on, with his hands up. And I remember it like, man, he looks like the pictures of Jesus, standing, basically just saying like, I'm here in peace, and them attacking him, just smash him in the face, breaking his ribs, But that image, the image of him standing there, and we knew this family, we knew the Move family, So that was, but him standing there, but then also them dragging him by his locks, children, it was just like it looked like a war zone, and the fact that they did not want to give just I recognize their humanity, the way that they spoke about, these black people, the way that they spoke about black people in general, like it was just one of those pieces where it just connected all the dots over and over again. And I was surrounded by, just dope black teachers who were teaching history and all of that. That kind of crystallized it for me because it was real time as well. In addition to all the other things that were happening, that is probably one of the moments that's seared, in my memory. Um, the firmest, and early on, I would say that, and that was right after I first saw the picture of my father and and the Black Panthers in their being stripped and shot at and all those kind of things. And, that image of these black men handcuffed and in boxers, up against the wall in West Philly. And, and they did this to all the Panther offices in Philadelphia. Some had to get like absolute butt naked. Others, they were in their boxers. But, that plus those are the two from my childhood. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna join the resistance some kind of way. I didn't know what, I didn't know how, but I was just like, I'm gonna be with them.
My John harkens back to childhood also, and it's more of like a personal experience. And I've referenced this before, right? Having like a slight stuttering problem in fourth grade and raising my hand to answer a question and started stuttering in the class, laughed at me. And the teacher's like, oh, don't mind him. His people talk like that. And I remember that, John, in fourth grade. And at the time, my parents complained and all that. But the librarian heard about that, John, gave me her original copy of the autobiography of Malcolm X. And by fifth grade, kids around the school would call me Ishmael X. Because like, and like at that time, like, you in fifth grade, you don't really know what's going on like that. So like I would write like, Black Power everywhere and like Malcolm X and all my schoolwork and all that. Some white folks, I probably look real crazy. But then as time went on, I had to re-remember it, and it was re-remember having that foundational base. But for me, I can't point to another time. So Chris, you talking about, before the John rocking the African medallion in the early 90s, late 80s with the John,
What y'all know about that? Y'all
X-Clan,
don't know nothing
X-Clan.
about the African medallion.
I was doing that John as a 10-year-old. You know what I mean? I was about that life. So everything led up to that point. And, I was lucky enough to come of age, 16, 17-year-old, to hear music like Dead Prez drop, Black Star drop, which reaffirmed right at the perfect time when leaving high school what it's all about, while at the same time continuing my own educational journey, recognizing that school wasn't necessarily the place you get it all the time, which also inspired me to become an educator. So like, it's real interesting how all these stories kind of overlap, because when you do sit back and think about how do you approach these situations, like what do our youth need? There's so many questions that come about. And I think that's why educators uniquely always find themselves like, having these stories or coming from some of those, experiences, thinking, how can I impact the world and make a change, especially for our people?
I wanted to go through all those moments that you have. A lot of you know this. You all three are educators, Black male educators. There's only 2%. Sharif, this is what you work on. It's not 2%. It's not enough. Let's just put it that way, of Black males. And we don't, I think, study enough of what Black males in education and educators go through. They're not just everybody else in the teaching force, right? They have a special, unique way of being. I want to tie this back, though, to Black history being the thing that does something to inoculate you. You each just talked about your moments. I know when I was growing up, I was, let's just say, Black Panther adjacent, because that's the folks around me. But I was also very much in what looked like it was starting to move away from the more militant stuff, and it was the Parliament funkadelic, the party atmosphere, the kind of like cameo and Daz band, all this type of stuff. It's a different life. Like when you start getting into that, it's not that radical militant stuff. But see, the thing that happened to me happened for you all too. People put at critical times, somebody put a book in my hand and said, young man, you better read this, blah, 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 blah. And I read it privately. So even though I'm like all about the George Clinton, Funkadelic, Parliament, whatever, Rick James, it was like, that was my thing, all of that. And that lineage went on with Prince and everything else. I still had in me this basis, this inoculation that people had handed me. One family member gave me a Black Bible. It was a Bible where every character in the Bible was Black, and there was a picture of every single Noah was Black, and it showed a picture of Noah. And I took it to be real, and it was real, but I didn't know that no one else around me had that book. So then people would talk about stuff, and I'd be like, "What are you talking about? Noah was Black, right?" Inoculation. Even though I was off on this other journey, I still had people in my life. There was a book called Black Voices that everybody read at one point. And it was all these different Black authors from all over the world in one book. It was an anthology. I read that just thinking everybody knew all this stuff.
That joint
So when
was
I found
good
out,
too.
what's that?
That joint was good.
It was really good. I mean, it was the fact that it was anthology, I think was a powerful thing because there was lots of Black voices in this one book. But I want to go back to this sense that I thought everybody knew all this stuff, that we all shared this. So when you faced something that was like what you faced, Crim, you already had this basis of which, you didn't break in the moment. So let's tie it back to what we could do for our children. You all are educators, what we could do for our kids better about why do we think Black history will save their lives, and what more should we be doing for them as parents and as educators?
I can give you an example in real time. I teach an online course now for elementary kids. I call it the Black History Book Club, and we meet like 3 times a month, and it's mostly Black. We have a couple white kids in there. It's a great time with those kids. This one kid in particular, he might be 7 years old. Let's say his name is William. And this is one of the brightest young men I've had the pleasure of teaching. He comes prepared every day or every Monday. He's ready to read. When he was started the class at 6 years old, he was reading to me at like a middle school level. And his mom was always on the side. I could tell even anytime he mispronounced something, she was there to kind of help him out and everything. Just a very ambitious child. This past Monday, because I felt compelled to tell this to the kids because I have a close friend of mine who's Indian, who's in the class. He's a teacher as well. And his son was dealing with some issues at 10 years old, being bullied and, taunted with ice and stuff like that. So I told the kids, I kept reiterating because we do affirmations every class and I keep telling them why. And I talk about how Muhammad Ali, how he affirmed what he was going to be. And I talk about Malcolm X and what he dealt with and just the importance of it, especially like studies say that, again, going back to studies, Black children, Latino children, when they affirm themselves about their future positively, they're more likely to go to college, right? We have to have that buffer. This young man, he sends me a private message later in class and says that he names the boy because, he's young. He thinks I know his friend. He says, this kid, so-and-so, in karate class told me, am I ready to be his slave? And I said, what? And he sent it privately, so I didn't know if he wanted me to say his name. So I just told the class, like, somebody just shared this with me. And, this class ranges from 5 to 10 years old. And he eventually spoke up and said that it was him. And he wanted people to know. And just everybody in the class, because he's one of the youngest ones, just started just pouring in support. You're, blah, blah, blah. Because before, and mind you, when I asked them what they had been doing the last 2 weeks, I didn't see him last week. He said, I'm working on a movie script. I was like, what? You're 7. And he said, an animated movie. I said, so, and he shares what happened and everybody just pouring into him, just building him up and affirming him. And afterwards, I emailed his mom and I said, do you mind if I share this publicly? Of course, not saying his name and everything. And she said she was fine. That's fine. And I asked how he was doing. She's like, he's pretty resilient. He was curious why somebody would want to do that, but it didn't damage him, And I can't prove this, but I'm just saying, I think a portion of that it's the parenting, right? Because for a parent to say, I'm gonna sign my kid up for a class on a Monday evening, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern, in addition to what they already do at school, I'm going to sit there with them the whole time. You're already doing something at home. And then for me, I'm probably the only Black male teacher he has. So every week we're talking about, person of the week. We're talking about, I spend the whole first semester, it's all African history. We don't even touch on slavery. We just got to slavery in February. So by the time we get to this, they know it's not normal. And I'm just saying, to the point of, for the first 7 years of his life, he's been built. And to the point of karate, how I'm looking at it now is, when you take karate, and I took it, a little bit, I didn't really get far, but they tell you we're teaching you this so you don't use it, but you could kill somebody with it.
That's kind of like Black history. I'm teaching you this so but don't kill nobody with it.
Don't kill, because straight up, because when you keep, it's like when you work out, if you ever see them dudes that's not just working out, but they hitting the bag, and you yeah, I ain't about to, they ain't just swole, they putting it in practice. I think that's what it is, especially as an educator, as Black male educators. We know, if you fix your mouth to you gonna lie on me? Oh, now I'm about to really go in. Now I'm about to talk about how your people came here to learn from me, and how we went to Spain, and how we did this, and how, this is actually based on this. And it there's nothing you can say to me that's going to hurt me based on my history. And when we give those kids that buffer, that strength, it's like the mental fortitude it's almost like how we grow up. Every region calls it something different. We would call it we roasting each other. Like you had to figure out how to respond when somebody came at you.
Brother's been roasting for a long time.
Roasting,
we invented roasting just back in the day, just so y'all know.
That's our generation.
We invented roasting.
You can't come with no busted shoes. You can't come like we was big on the name brand clothes. Like if your hairline was messed up, and you had to be able to respond. Bare minimum, your mama. You got to be able to say something.
At least.
Your mama's so fat, her blood type is ragu. I remember this back in the day. These are the old days. So I just want to ask a quick question, since you all three are educators. Is the lesson in what you just said, though, is that we have to put our kids into things. Like, it's not just handing them a book or preaching at them. Like, you have a recurring standing appointment. Like, if I put my kid into this recurring standing appointment, it's more active, more fun. It's not just school. Like you mentioned, he's in karate. I can remember when I was young, every Black father felt like was making their kids play chess, tennis, and do karate. It was like those three things in the 70s. I don't know where it came from, but out of nowhere, Black men were just, you got to learn how to play chess. And whether you liked it or not, you had to learn how to play chess,
They're like, they saw Arthur Ashe and like, all right, that's you. You know what I mean? Like,
Arthur Ashe, that was it. Now everybody got to go to tennis camp in the summer. So I'm guessing is the point for parents, put your kids in things, not just school, but put them in other activities that are recurring. Is that the lesson in what you were just saying?
Yeah.
Or part of the lesson?
I think it's important to put them in things. And also, too, I think we have to be very particular about it when we put our kids in sports. Let's make sure that they're being mentored by people who see them as more than an athlete. Because my daughter who runs track, she's with a Black male, like a guy he's been coaching for years. And you can tell he's not just doing it because he loves track. He loves the youth. He's there to guide them. He's there to help them get to college. Like we have to make sure that mindset. Now, we don't want the coach that's screaming at the 5-year-old, like just because for the hell of it. We want somebody that is truly there. Like it's that the activity should be the vehicle to mentorship, the vehicle to teaching, especially as Black boys. Like I recall when I did the Black Student Union in my school, we always struggled to get boys to come because we want to hoop, we want to play football, play video games. We don't want to sit down and talk about our history after school. But if you frame it as it's an AAU team, and then at the end of the practice, we're going to talk about this. We're going to read this together. It's completely different. So I think it's very important to put them in activities, but also to be intentional about who we're surrounding them with. We don't want to surround them with that person whose only intention is to get them to the league. But we know that ain't likely going to happen for a lot of our kids.
Yeah, I think that's so important. That reminds me of Mike Scott, who you met, Chris, and the father of the triplets. He does a lot of work with the AAU. And whenever they take these young men, particularly the middle schoolers that he works with, they're traveling the country. They're going by to see, okay, what was the Black experience in this place, in this city? Not just go to the gym, go eat, and then hotel, sleep, and then head out. It's like, okay, what was the Black experience? All right, here's the museum we're going, or here's the monument that we're going. Like they're constantly adding that. And my favorite teacher was, Baba Changa, and he was our history teacher, but he was also our martial arts teacher. And, the way that everything blended, like everywhere was a classroom, he would like some narrative, we'd be like out in, out in the sun, sweating, 1,000 jumping jet, blah, blah, blah. Then he would talk about XYZ, and just sharing the connectivity about, and often it was about like Africa, but also the connectivity here. And man, we would just be soaking these, this information up, whether it's the books, the resources, the narratives, and to the earlier point, and back to research, Black children are particularly sensitive to their teachers' expectations. Particularly. And when you think about it, like just all the messaging that they get in society about who they are, what the expectations of them are. And then to go to a school and hear the same thing, but now with a textbook, with this authority figure, as a teacher, not just the media and social media and blah, blah, blah. But now you have this person, how youth are, it's like, my parent, at some point, even a parent, you're telling your parent, well, my teacher said, you know what I mean? Well, my teacher, if you have that kind of, relationship. And so how people think about, our youth is so important, particularly when they're leading a classroom or leading as a coach. All of that can do some severe damage or some beautiful, as you call it, inoculation.
These are like real time examples. My nephew, my oldest nephew, who is 9 years old, between him and my oldest daughter, I could probably write another book on their experiences between majority black school, private school that was mostly white led. My nephew is at a school now that's named after one of our great leaders in Chicago. Has a black teacher. He came home one day and told my sister that his teacher told him that he set his goals too high for the next standardized test. They are tasked with setting goals for the the statewide test and everything, whatever they were doing. And my sister talks to the principal, because again, we in the same household, so she know that's preposterous. She talks to the principal about it, the teacher about it, and they're saying that that's what they instruct teachers to do, to correct them to be more realistic. Right? I don't care if that boy said he want to get 120%. Like, you better figure out a way. And it's not to say that they're gonna meet it every time, but if that boy say he want to go to Mars, you better tell, okay, yep, let's write a movie about it first and let's figure it out. Now, the crazy thing about this is, because of his upbringing, he actually surpassed the goal he set. So he didn't meet the goal, he surpassed it. But what if he believed what that teacher said? Like you said, Sharif, the expectations, what Gloria Ladson Billings talks about, we know that's one of our main things of respect. What do you expect from me? And oftentimes I found when I was in the classroom, I was thinking I would only I was thinking only black kids and Latino kids would love my style. But I began to realize that all of the kids, white kids included, liked my class, regardless of their conservative upbringing sometimes, because I expected something of them. I expected them to do something. I didn't play. And it wasn't like I was yelling at them, but it was a stern type of playful discipline and expectation that didn't let them just take the easy way out.
You're a warm demander with great relationships, right? Like, and that's the foundation to being the dopest teachers are warm demanders, and they have great relationships with, with children. Like, those two combined, and then you add content expertise. Watch out. Like, those kids coming out, like, they gonna know some stuff, and they're gonna be able to do some stuff.
I'll tell y'all. So you know this about me. I'm a laissez-faire parent. I always say
free range parenting.
Yeah, I'm very well. In a way, it's like I'm trying to raise free people. I'm not trying to raise replicants of myself. So so I give tons of leeway on. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm not going to tell you how to think it. I'm not going to live in the world. I'm going to die. I'm not going to live in the world you're going to live in. You have to prepare yourself for that world. But I will give you some guidance here and there. I will give you some keys, but you need to find a lot of this for yourself. So this week we get a text message from one of my kids saying that they got called into the office, and all the boys in his classroom, all his friends got called into the office, and they were told that they have the right to not take the testing that day because it was the state testing that day, and all they had to do was text their parent to see if it was okay. So text us to see if it's okay for them to sit out, and we're like, no, you're gonna take that. And it was this squabble. It turned into kind of like a little bit of a back and forth. Well, all my friends are going to not have to take it and do it. I'm going to be the only one, blah, 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 blah. Was that type of exchange? And first of all, it's like, Negro, who are you talking to? But anyways, like, this is the free range stuff. This is where, like, you can't invite them to your hand anymore like you used to be able to, whatever. But, I'm trying to be that free range parent, whatever. So when we said no, you have to, like, I say no rarely. I try to rarely say no to anything so that my no's matter. So, like, where some parents say, don't do this, don't touch that. No. I'm a yes parent all the way up until I'm not. And in this case, I said no. And the response was, well, fine. You want our school to lose money, I guess. What? So they pulled you into an office and told you that their school might lose money if you took this test on this day. Now, I'm a person who talks about this stuff all the time, and this is my own child. And I think there's this perception that because you're educated, you're an educator or whatever, that you don't experience these problems in your own life or these type of troubles. This isn't the first incident like that with this particular son. So I would love for you all to dispel this myth that just because you're educators, everything's perfect and you don't ever like encounter any of these type of things with your own kids because you're educator. So, so your kids are inoculated from this. I just want you to address that because I felt at that moment like, well, damn, what's wrong with me? Like I obviously didn't teach him something. Something went wrong because he's texting us for something that he knows he shouldn't be texting me about. Like with that, anyways, can you talk about this myth that because you are educated, you are educators, this would never touch you in your own life?
It's a work in progress. It's praxis, like we.
Okay, see, I don't know what that means. See, you don't already lost me. My man said praxis. I was like, what is this, the manifesto? What are we doing now? Praxis.
Pedagogical. No, no we got to put it into action. That's what it is. Like, it's real. It's regardless of the type of school, like we're dealing with imperfect people. It's almost like this idea, when you go to a church, like, everybody expects the pastor and everybody to be perfect. No, we're here because we want help. Like we want that spirituality, that community, but everybody's afraid to be truthful about their struggles, So like my oldest is in 6th grade now. Like there's at least one situation a year. And oftentimes for me, because I'm a public, figure, I'm shocked, honestly, because I would say because I'm like, didn't they tell y'all, even if you didn't know what I did, it's like, didn't they tell y'all how I'm going to come up to that school? They don't send out a memo like, look, be cool, like be respectful, but definitely don't mess with them Crim kids because I'd be ready to shut everything down. If she did not have a great principal, like it takes everything in me not to put them on blast, but I'm like, my kids go there. So I got to be very careful, Just this past school year, my daughter, again, she runs track AAU team. So like it's some weekends where it's like we got a town for a track meet, whatever. She had one day where she came in, she had a sub in the class, she's doing some work, she puts her hoodie on, and she knows that's not the rule. To me, it's trivial, but she was in the class with the hoodie on, right? The sub didn't say anything. A dean, white guy, walks past the class, right? She's in the class doing her work with the hoodie on, not in the hall with the hoodie on. He walks in the class, comes up behind her and yanks her down.
Oh, hell no. See.
You see what I'm saying? You see how you just felt in that moment?
No.
I gave you the dynamics. Like I'm a white male. Okay? My daughter, black girl. You understand? Like
catch a case.
I wanted to walk up to that school at that moment. Mm-hmm. So it's not that just because I teach about this, like this is me. Half the time I'm teaching from experience, y'all. Like I enter every speaking engagement talking about what happened to me for real. I'm not talking about what I read in a book.
That's a very important point, though. You all are doing this from experiences. It's not just all book learning. Right. That's an important point to put out in the world, right? You still are black men. You still are that black boy that's growing up in the world.
Experience,
right?
Boys.
Yeah. Okay, that clicks for me.
It's like what Sharif said. That moment when you study and then you see it happening, you like, oh snap. Mm-hmm. Like I'm taking a Black History course in college at this PWI, and then there's a blackface party. And then y'all hip hop, so Little Brother's Minstrel Show comes out same year. I'm just like, yo, this is crazy. And I'm at my first protest all of a sudden.
So Ish, you an educator. It's been perfect for you though. I mean, like you haven't had any problems ever. So, what would you add to this conversation? Having it been, you're an educator, so it's perfect in your household.
Nah, man. Having 4 boys, navigating a system like in the city of Philadelphia, they've all gone to like 4 different schools. So they've all been through like different Afrocentric schools, charter schools, private schools, public schools. And it's real interesting, the issues that come up majorly in public schools, really around like issues. So like my 3rd son, Ezekiel, My bad if I said his name. He
You ain't gotta apologize to us, but
I
wait
know.
till sis.
I'm just telling you, my homie, his friends monitor you. I know that, I know this to be true. That's why I didn't name my child because,
Yes.
because
My bad about
they
that.
friends will roast them back to roasting. So,
well, I mean, he was in first grade and his teacher gave him like a little booklet about Black History Month during Black History Month. Nothing about Carter G. Woodson, nothing about, so I had to pull the teacher's card. And so I went to school, and at the same time, I'm teaching in the same district. So mind you, it's like that type of thing. Like I'm a teacher. I sent an email saying like, I know some people that do good anti-racist work for white educators with a lot of Black, brown students. This type of document is very damaging. Suppose the principal hit me up a couple days later saying, please talk to me. Don't come to my teachers first. The teacher actually took off the last 3 days. She left crying that day after reading the email. So like, and to this day, I heard that woman hates me still. But like that type of thing has happened throughout. So like even my oldest son right now, like he's in his senior year. We don't know if he has his geometry credit because supposedly like he failed it in 10th grade and the school said, oh no, he can catch it up like this. And then it didn't catch up. And he's like, I did it. And then we went to school and he's like, he did it. And it's like, no, he didn't. So it's like a lot of that going on. And it's like, don't y'all understand? Like, I know how this system works. And it's still being treated and given a runaround about like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And that is like a consistent thing, like devaluing our voices when it comes to kind of what we think is important for our children. And I can tell you right now, man, like the best experience my children had, and I think the one, and I've said this numerous times, that really have inoculated them was going to an Afrocentric school when they were like in kindergarten, first and second grade. It inoculated them to the degree where they're looking around and be like, why do people talk trash on like being out in the sun too long? That type of idea. You know what I mean? But like, it's very important to keep that in mind. And I do want to take one more thing, Mr. Crim, and what you were just saying about like the messiness of the human element, right? It applies to our children too. Those are different types of people and different types of personalities as they're coming up. And they react differently for different things. And you have to adjust and everything as they get older and how they figure out their own identity in the world. But that also goes to education and how we interact with other people and what we're talking about overall, right? And that's why critical consciousness, along with the relationships and everything's very important. So even when people think they've reached a conclusion, you should be able to be in a position to be like, how do you know that's true? And I think that applies specifically to the Black experience in America, because it's like America claims that it's free, it's founded on freedom. And it's like, yeah, but we got the receipts, bruh. And not only do we got the receipts, but we can point to how those receipts still operate and function without in the world. And that is a very threat to the very mythology and story that folks tell us. So when we do that and have those conversations, it's illegal, right? And we have those conversations with our children, man, they're going to react differently. But the point is, we want you to learn this and see how to react. And I agree. That's why Black history can save lives, man. It can give you meaning and purpose beyond just, going through the motions of this.
So I don't know about that, but because I want to press you guys on this, because this is the main point of this. How can Black history actually save your life when in a world of Philando Castile, you're a legal gun owner carrying and you're not with us anymore? How could Black history have saved your life? You're Sandra Bland. How could Black history have saved your life? You're a 13-year-old Black boy in almost any major city, and there is 1 or 2 or 3 encounters of walking by somebody who has authority who manhandles you in a way because your parents aren't there. How is Black history saving you in that moment? So, and I'm going to use kind of like the old man Lil Wayne example. So Lil Wayne's in an interview and they ask him about Black Lives Matter. And he's drunk on cough syrup and he says, I don't know nothing about no Black Lives Matter. What that got to do with me? I look at my audience. I see white people and white people buy me, blah, 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 blah. And in this moment, I understand how much I hate mass communicators within Black culture, because the question I would have for you is, have our people moved on from Black history and the whole world has devalued it to the point where even they are saying to you and me and others, that stuff you're teaching me is trivial. That's not even part of the real world. Nobody even thinks of Africa like that. Nobody even thinks that this stuff that you're teaching me is somehow alien and foreign to the real world that I live in every day. It's the Lil Wayne thing. Like, we're over that now. We're past that. the number of, I'll give you one statistic that I heard that just blew my mind, was the number of young Black people who were, number one, agreeing with a lot of the Trump stuff, the MAGA type stuff, and starting to say things like saying the N word with the hard R is no longer the problem that it used to be, and they don't care anymore. Like, I don't care if my white friends say that or whatever. That was blowing my mind. Like young people right now are post history in some ways. I don't know if I'm making too much of this point, but I'm challenging you all on this. We think this is so important. We believe it's monumentally, like, essential to the building of a person, a Black person. And now they may be seeing it as the world's moved on from what you believe. Like, that's old stuff right now. I don't know the point that I'm making, but it feels like
I
the
get
culture
you.
has moved past it.
I get you. I mean, it's almost like that Morgan Freeman quote.
Oh, stop it. Oh, my God. Stop it.
Which I still can't
Ooh,
believe.
say it.
He
Tell
said,
these brothers what it was, in case y'all don't know. Tell them what Morgan Freeman said.
Well, he was being interviewed before about Black History Month, and he pretty much said it was irrelevant and it shouldn't be a thing.
He also said there's no more racism anymore.
You
just work hard. Yeah, you just work hard.
And I think he's from a town where they didn't have an integrated prom until like, 15, 20 years ago or something like that. He made a documentary about it. So it was just...
He's still driving Miss Daisy in his mind. So. You got to excuse her. Right? I mean,
see, you're wrong for that. You just wrong.
Some people take roles and it infects their whole brain.
Has to.
When Denzel said he played Malcolm, he said it impacted him in a particular way. I do think even when it came in, I've never seen the movie, but just the commercials and the title was enough to tell me, like, this Joker is out of his mind. The way that he was promoted. Because it's one thing back in the day where people had to take roles, as like, this is my life, but it was also like a form of, even when they came out of it, they're like, yeah, I had to do this, but this ain't what I'm about, kind of thing, which is very different than a lot of. And he's still in it. Some people get old; they don't become our elders. Some people just get old.
But they do get celebrated. That clip, the only reason I know about this clip is because it got celebrated through 100%. Right-wing world of, see,
they love when we say it.
Oh, they loved. He's one of the ones that gets it. I fear that Morgan Freeman quote is more aligned with where our own people are going than the Sister Soldier clip that I put out that got 50,000 views like right away. There's a Sister Soldier clip that I have where she's going off on Cornel West and others. This is back in the day. And she's saying, I was never taught how to be a successful African in the United States. I was never taught how to build a business, how to build a life, how to build a nation. And your programs, none of your programs have done anything for me because I've been through all of them. My life didn't change until I met a Black man, a Black teacher who got me reading these things about myself and taught me about, she goes on and on and on about this. That clip got like 50 something thousand like views for me, like right away. But I think the Morgan Freeman clip got in the millions. And I believe that Morgan Freeman quote is more dangerous about where we're going.
Well, you speak to it like we've been inoculated with this idea of individualism, and we come from a communal people. And I don't think we realize how damaging that is to us. I would also say, as a visual, think of it like America has created this anti-Black pill that they ingest to be anti-Black. And it's a part of our regimen too. It's a part of our vitamin routine too. We take it. So if we don't detox from that, then we like Lil Wayne can think that about us. He thinks because he has the buffer of money, notoriety, success. So he feels protected, right? He also will speak to the fact that a white cop saved his life before, as if that isn't like, is an argument for why the structure of policing isn't damaging. He uses that one example oftentimes, I look at it like in terms of Black history, like literally you can't like put up a book to defend yourself against a bullet in the ravaging races. But if somebody handed you a book, Malcolm X, right, in prison, you don't realize you're in prison and you're reading the book. And as you read the book, you're like, oh, wait a second. We ain't supposed to be here. Or like they put us in this cage. Save your life. Like it gives you perspective. Like I wasn't really like, we got folks who was born like in prison, like Mike Africa, right? You think that's your place until you read and you have perspective. The thing that's why I say it saves your life, like these quotes, John Henry Clark, if you start your history with slavery, you can only become a better slave. It gives you perspective to say what happened to Philando, what happened to Alton, that's not the way it's supposed to be. And we can, to your hat, organize and create something that provides better support or provides for us, or it gives you the vantage point of, the Panthers actually found a way to counter this years ago. They were monitoring the police. Like, and in their area, they found those numbers of abuse drop because they stayed at a safe distance. They were armed doing this. Not to say everybody should do that, but it's to say that there were examples of us doing this. So it helps us wake up. And then also the perspective, I always tell people, the quote that I heard, nothing's wrong with you, something happened to you. It gives you the perspective to say, oh, I didn't put myself in this hole. Because we like, when you live in the hood, if you don't see outside the hood, you think you're supposed to be in the hole. And even when you do see outside the hole, if you don't have perspective, you say, dang, why we can't make a better neighborhood? Not realizing that your family was redlined intentionally. You were run out of town.
This is the most powerful thing I've ever heard, that there's nothing wrong with you. Something happened to you.
I can't take credit for it, but I use it all the time. I think his name was
that's good.
Gabor Matt, the doctor. And I also heard it from Resma Menicum as well.
Ish is shaking his head. You already knew this, Ish?
Yeah. My wife's a social worker, so she read Gabor Mate. I think that's how you say his name. Yeah, she talked about that. But it's true.
And I part of social emotional learning too, Chris, like in schools when you're dealing with like trauma and providing like the therapy. And this is why they were like, oh, teachers aren't social. It's not that you have to be a social worker, but if you're working with people, you do have to understand people and human beings and something what they've been through. You don't have to be a social worker, but to not have that lens of empathy and tools to kind of support how you interact, how you engage. That's why I get like teaching is so complex, but I get tired of when I hear teachers like, and I'm not this and I'm not that. I just want to teach content. Like, then you're in the wrong business. You're in the wrong business. You're leading a classroom with human beings. That means you have to be able to relate and understand and help human beings. It's not just the content, it's the inspiration, it's the support, it's the challenge, it's all those things. That's what makes it so beautiful. That's why when you find dope teachers, that's what makes it so beautiful. That's why we say it's God's work, because it's having this kind of love for humanity, but also love for humanity is like, I want you to be better, smarter, stronger, faster than even I was as a person, as an adult. Like, you're going to have these tools. And so like that kind of framing helps you develop support and empathy for youth, but for human beings, period.
So I know we got to wrap soon, but I want to tie it back. This last quote, first of all, I'm going to leave right now and go look this up. There's nothing wrong with you. Something happened to you. And the way I would tie it back is, well, if you don't know what that something was that happened to you, you're not going to know where you are right now. You're not going to know why you're where you are. You're going to be discombobulated, right? So help me tie this back. There's something happened to you, and help me tie it back to, if you know that what happened, then what? Fill in that blank for me. What happens once you know?
Well, real quick, I just want to quote James Baldwin. The victim who's able to articulate the situation, the victim no longer is a victim, they become a threat, right? I also want
to... How you gonna pull all these out on me like, what?
And I thought you was gonna say the one about being enraged. I love it.
Yeah, to be Negro and conscious.
Well, say this one again, the victim one. Say this to me again.
The victim who's able to articulate the situation, and the victim is no longer a victim, they become a threat.
Wow.
But like, even in this society, like, and I put it in the chat box, right? How can you even be a good person in this white supremacist, anti-Black kind of structure and paradigm if you don't know these things that you can only learn from Black history, from that counter narrative, right? So if you believe the other storyline, right, you always come to the conclusion, well, then something's wrong with Black people, right? And if you're white, that looks different than if you're Black. If you're Black, you're internalizing that to believe, well, what's wrong with us? I think Vince Staple on this show that shows that so many different times. If y'all saw that, John, on Netflix, a real interesting way how that manifests, right? But then if you look at white people, that fits into their already confirmation bias that they already feel about the deficits of what Black people are, right? And that's why it's very important to understand, like, if you can't acknowledge or recognize or even like point to the fact that Black people were never meant to be free in this society, then you hold anti-Black views regardless of your racial identity or if you're pink with purple polka dots, because you're reinforcing, or you're going to reinforce just by default what you have been indoctrinated with. And that is anti-Black at the very root, and also in white supremacist, steeped in white supremacist values. And we have to be very honest about that. Like, how can you even like figure out like what it means to be a good person, right? You can help your neighbor, but you know, them damn people around the way, if they keep on moving here into this block, we're going to have to move out. How can
I
that,
swear
how can you
y'all
be a
have
good person?
you have ruined my weekend. Y'all just see now I'm gonna be like reading. Hold up, that's so deep. Wow, I
Yeah.
love this. I love
No,
this.
I think too, it's when you, to that point, to that powerful quote, the thing that happened to us is every level of violence imaginable. It's the physical violence, it's the structures of violence, it's the emotional, spiritual violence. You know, oftentimes, I'll never forget when me and my family took a road trip to Myrtle Beach one time, and I had recently figured out that on my dad's side, he thought that they had been in Florida for a while, and I did some census research and found out we were in South Carolina. Unsurprisingly, went down to Florida, then Chicago. So I was like trying to find like, you know, the county and plantations in the area, and I found a plantation that was adjacent to it. I'm sure it wasn't the same one, but it was in the area. So we stopped there on the way back, and I'll never forget this park ranger giving us this tour, and he took us to the master bedroom, and we're able to oversee what used to be the plantation, and he's showing us this artwork that the mistress was able to make, and he was talking about this white guy about how she had this time, like these really intricate pieces of art to knit, and like she had this time. It's that level of violence too. Violence of the sense of urgency all the time. The violence of, do you know how magnificent we are? Just what we were able to create when we had a little bit of freedom, right? A little bit. Like hip hop emerges, jazz emerges, the Black Wall Streets of Harlem, like imagine how much of that was lost during that time period. The urgency. I think I'm still trying to unlearn. I'll be trying to tell myself every day I got to go to bed. I'm trying to go to bed earlier. Stop working all the time. Like sit down somewhere. We have been the hardest working people here, but they portray it otherwise. Who's worked harder than us here? But we come from people who worked out of necessity when it was needed in accordance with the seasons. And the violence is what we're able to do now. I look at as a privilege because I know I can do this because 200 years ago, there was some bodies in my family tree who possessed this same tenacity, the same love, the same passion. But right now, if they did something different, they could have died. So once you figure that out, you don't take any day for granted. You appreciate this moment and say, I owe it to myself. When I'm signing books to people, I'm telling people like, look, there's two things you want to really focus on: making your ancestors proud, but then making your progeny even prouder. I want people to look back and say, well done, thank you. It's the least I can do for what Dr. Carter G. Woodson did for us. It's the least I can do for what Harriet Tubman did. That perspective, after the election, I was telling people like during speaking engagements, I said, do you think Harriet Tubman cared who the president was? I told my daughters that too. Like, I know we really wanted that to happen. I know that would have been a great thing for you, but like, she ain't care. I can't even name up before Lincoln. And again, we made him be the one that people revered, if not for her, if not for Frederick and all those other folks. You know what I'm saying? So it's the perspective gives you, I think, the ability to say the slingshot is what I like to use. The further you pull me back, the further I go back, the further I'm going to propel myself forward. The issue we have now is we have to remember this collectively. Because it doesn't help if it's just me, if it's just us four. Once we collectively remember who we are, then it shifts things. And I think we're starting to see that now because we see these different things happening constantly. And I feel Black people online are all like, they mad because we ain't reacting the way they expected.
That brings up, and you're a teacher of history, and I know we got to wrap soon, but y'all just keep throwing stuff up that's going to make me keep thinking about this. I was taught Black history the wrong way, even being Panther adjacent in this one way, in that they didn't highlight the collectivism as much as they highlighted the charismatic Negro. So, I thought Huey was everything, right? I wanted to be Huey. Huey was fly. He was everything. But you also do that with King and with Malcolm and with Garvey, and keep going down the list. You make these people out to be individuals who did something amazing, but you don't trump up the and that's a bad choice of words, but you don't play up the collectivism part of it. So I was even taught, as someone, I only thought this in this second right now, as you said that, I only thought this in this second, that I was taught about it was the great man theory or the great person theory. You just talked about Harriet. I've learned about Nat Turner. I learned about these people as individuals, but I didn't learn what they did to engender collectivist action.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a real important point, man. And I think, and this is why I'm like, what I didn't necessarily enjoy this as a kid, but like our elementary school, like they constantly talked about the community, like, and again, but they used the Nguza Saba, right? The Nguza Saba was our value system as a school, right? And so if you're constantly reinforced, so bad, I think I shared this with you before. If we got into a fight as a kid, we weren't suspended. We were tied together. So whoever you fought with, you were tied together with some yarn, and you couldn't break it. And the rest of that day, you were together. You had to figure things out. And they're like, you know what? We are a community, and you're going to work together.
So they would literally tie you together?
Yeah, they had yarn, and they would tie you together.
Okay, so what I would do is I would come in every day and pick a fight with the finest girl in the school. Every single day. Tie me together.
Listen, my friend, you'd want to be careful with the because remember, we took martial arts. My first bloody nose was by Qaeda.
Qaeda didn't play.
Qaeda didn't play. So, my first bloody nose in my life was Qaeda Harrison. All right. So
Qaeda, wherever you are right now, this brother's doing you wrong.
Fly. Everybody loved Qaeda. Like, so I don't know, bro. I don't know if that would have been the strategy you would have wanted.
Well, listen, I know we got to wrap.
One other thing, Chris,
go ahead.
In freedom schools, one of the songs, that the youth sing, something inside so strong. And one of the lines is, the higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. Mm-hmm, right. And then it goes back to like the slingshot and just having the mental awareness of, you have to be able to see the barriers, right? You have to be able to see the both the visible and the invisible, the traps, that are laid right in front of you, and the lures. Like all of that, to me, like when you're having the history and you have the education and you have that, this is why it can save your life. Because as everybody has articulated, how this is interpreted, like, some of the most dangerous things happen is when it's internalized anti-Blackness, because and then you say like, wait a minute, this society is structured in a way where we're segregated most of the time. And so if my people have anti-Blackness, that's how me as a 19, 20-year-old ends up getting, shot 3 times, right? Because of that internalized, like, I hate myself, so how can I have any love for your humanity, right? So all of that is absolutely, critical. And just on the basic pop culture kind of thing, the Matrix, John, right? Like, you got to be awakened. You got to be woke.
It all comes back to the Matrix, right? Every single time.
So the education is having the understanding of what am I actually seeing and what am I being told.
Yeah.
And without that history, you're always going to just fall for the okie doke. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate this so much with y'all. And we could keep having this conversation. We should keep having this conversation. I think it's the right one. And I think there's a lot of people grasping for straws and looking to you all who are educators, who are Black men, who have lived the Black male experience, who have a bigger world fund of information about what we're experiencing than someone else would have. And many of us are sending our kids into schools every day, knowing for a fact that something might be missing, but not knowing what the missing is. So like, I just think this conversation is the one that enlightens more of us, especially those of us who would be a little bit embarrassed about what we don't know. That's why I like conversations like this. And this is why I love talking to educators, is because there's a little bit of embarrassment about things that you feel like you should know already. as a parent when you're, and that's why people look to you guys like PK kids a little bit, like, preacher's kids, and that like, oh yeah, of course it's good for you, because you read all the books, and,
all
the
this
rest,
praxis.
all this praxis, prophylactic praxis, that I feel like that dude from Penitentiary, comes out talking all these words, he don't know about the prophylactic practices of praxis, so this is why I think it's important, though, because we're having a lot of the wrong conversation, and I think this is the right one for us. How Black education can save you. I think I don't know 100%. Like, I would love to see an essay on this. I would love to see a blog post on this that makes me think deeper. But the whole thing about if you don't know yourself is in every ancient tradition. Know thyself, right? Like, know thyself is in every ancient tradition. It's like the oldest human law there is. If you don't know yourself, listen, you're just setting yourself up for a problem. So I didn't get to this last point too for people listening and watching. I love this quote that y'all pulled out on me that when the victim starts articulating their circumstances, they're no longer a victim, they're a threat. That is so deep in this one way it is so threatening that they pass laws that stop us from reading. It is so threatening that today they're passing laws to stop us from knowing it. That's how threatening it actually is that in 2025, they are still passing laws to prevent us from understanding what Mr. Crim told us is essential for us to understand.
Can I say this?
That's the beautiful, yeah.
No, you made me think of...
this is, that's the beauty of it, right? Because when you understand, it's the same mindset, it's the same racism in just a different form. Illegal to read, and now here we are, illegal to read, Go ahead, Chris.
Perspective. Stono rebellion happens. Now you can't read or write. Now you can't congregate. Like, again, like Sharif said, that connection. I wanted to share this small thought that somebody put on Instagram yesterday, and it said that imagine calling yourself the master race and having to resort to erasing the achievements of our people to make yourself feel better. Mm-hmm. You had to construct this whole system around being against us. Like, if you a coach and you planning your whole game plan around LeBron, Jordan, Steph Curry, or the whole team, the Cavs, right? The Lakers, the Warriors, and who's a better team in your mind? What are you actually saying? What's the quiet part out loud?
Damn, that's so deep. And it's so my mind is just racing with like this whole anti-woke thing is really a construct that should teach us how threatening woke was. As a concept, like I know even some of us don't like woke anymore. Like, oh no, they done made woke bad. We're bad. No. Woke was that you being awake, you being woke was that dangerous to where they had to put hundreds of millions of dollars into an anti-woke campaign. Now to be whatever we used to call woke, which is just aware of social injustices and social discrimination and the patterns of it, and being able to see the patterns of discrimination, that has now been outlawed as a social construct. Woke is now outlawed. That was a threat. Anyways, y'all got my mind racing. I need every one of y'all to write something this week, and let us get this out into the world. Sharif, were you going to say something else?
No. I was saying, okay. Stay woke and remain a threat.
Stay woke. Don't take woke back. Take woke. They just sold you sleep. Get that? They sold right. You sleep. They sold you sleep, bro. What's wrong with you? It's like Severance, that show. They done told you to lop off half your brain and just work. Every day. Anyways, I appreciate all of you brothers. And for the people listening and watching, this has been time with Ernest Crim III, who has a book coming out that I think you all should buy. I already pre-ordered it. I was trying to get rid of my my Amazon habit, and the best I could do was Barnes & Noble pre-order. I looked for some independent situations and couldn't find one. But wherever you can get it, go out and get this book, because I do think in some ways this is the right conversation. It's called Black History's Power to Combat Racism. It's by Ernest
How Black History Can Save Your Life.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Say that again.
Yeah, How Black History Can Save Your Life. And I want to definitely elevate. There are a few Black-owned shops that I know for sure have it. Semicolon Books in Chicago, The Book Joint in Chicago. That's DA, The Book Joint. Call and Response Bookstore in Chicago. burst into books, I believe. Mahogany Books, which I believe is in Baltimore. And you can also go to bookshop.org and you can select your favorite Black-owned or indie bookstore, and some of the proceeds will go to those stores.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, bookshop.org is the better choice.
Sharif, you should check to see if Uncle Bobby's has this.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he will.
In Philly.
Harriet's,
Harriet's,
Ida's bookstore, Harriet Bookstores, and Uncle Bobby, and of course the OG Hakeem's bookstore on 52nd Street. Matter of fact, we go in there on Saturday. We're trying to do the collective, so we've been just showing up at Black institutions. So those folks who are in Philly, make that a thing. We're going to go buy out Hakeem's bookstore. Have to have him replenish everything. So.
I love that. All right, y'all. Well, listen, keep the movement going. Keep the conversation going. Let us know wherever we can meet and be more than one person, wherever we can do, whenever you guys have something going on in the world, let's amplify and take our people back. We appreciate you watching Freedom Friday every week. And if you could share it with other people, that would be great. This has been another episode of Freedom Friday. And you're still not free, but hopefully you're freer after this hour with me and the homies. We'll catch you guys on the next time.